I think we're ready to get going. Good afternoon. We have a few people coming over. We have two live stream links, and we were trying to kickstart one of them, and here we are in the alternative live stream link. So hopefully everybody's joining us as well. So good afternoon. My name is Nicole Willier-Fenton. I'm the Content Marketing Manager at University of Vermont's Continuing and Distance Education Department, and we're going to talk about the Farmer Training Program today. We're really excited that this program is coming back in the spring, in May 2021. So we'll learn about some of those dates coming up as well. So we're going to do quick introductions. We're going to talk about the Farmer Training Program. We have a alumni with us today, Heather, and we're also going to hear from other alumni via a video, so you can learn a little bit more about their experiences in the Farmer Training Program. We're going to talk about a week in the life on the Catamount Farm. What does it look like to be an active student in the Farmer Training Program and an active participant in Catamount Farm? Course logistics, we've got some of those top questions that students tend to ask about this program, and we'll make sure to get to your questions throughout the presentation as well. As I mentioned, my name is Nicole, and I'm really happy to be here today with you. Rachel is our Catamount Farm Manager and the Farmer Training Program Director. Rachel, so happy to have you with us. She graduated from UVM with a degree in plant biology. She has been managing the Catamount Farm since 2015. She has been the co-director of the Farmer Training Program for several years and is now taking over the directorship of the program this year. So we're so happy to have her. She has been farming in the Northeast for the past 20 years. Thank you, Rachel, for being with us. And Heather Kraemer is with us as well. She is a recent graduate of our Farmer Training Program, and I cannot wait to hear about the nano brewing entrepreneurship that she is undergoing right now, I think with her, two of her relatives. So we're going to learn a little bit more about that and where that program is at and how she was able to glean information from the Farmer Training Program to move on to this next endeavor that she is embarking on right now. So I'm going to have Rachel dive in. So let's talk about this. I bet you get this question a lot when people say, what is a Farmer Training Program? How long does it take? What am I going to learn? Give us an overview, Rachel. What is UVM's Farmer Training Program?
Sure. So it's, in a nutshell, it's farm school. It's a 6-month certificate program, and it's a full-time program. So we do ask students to be there Monday through Friday. Weekends are off for the most part, although there are some weekend chores that students volunteer for on rotation. And it's really, I mean, the students are integral in making everything happen on the farm. So they arrive in May when our greenhouse is bursting with transplants that need to go on the ground, and students help do that, and they carry it through to marketing and distribution. And then mixed in with all that, we are looping in, I mean, the Farmer Training Program staff are the core teachers, but we loop in UVM professors and extension agents and other ag professionals in Vermont. And so students have many, many instructors through the course of this program. So yeah, that's a little bit of a nutshell of the overview.
I want to toss over to Heather for a moment. Heather, remind me when you completed. Was it last spring, last fall, essentially would have been a fall 2019, or was it 2018?
It was 2018.
Great. Okay, thank you. So share with us a year out, almost 2 years out from that program. How do you reflect back on the Farmer Training Program and why you decided at that point in your life that that was something that you wanted to do?
Great question. I found the program kind of searching through extended learning opportunities on the UVM website, to be honest, and really just like needing and searching for additional knowledge around agriculture and farming in general. I'm a gardener, I'm a grower, but I really was lacking in a confidence in like an infrastructure of knowledge that I could draw on to feed into my future business. I had a business plan at the time to incorporate crops that I was growing into beer, and essentially field to glass is the concept, and still remains that, and we are doing it, which is amazing. But in finding that program, there's so many facets of it that have been integral to me embarking on my own crop management and pest and disease control and those kinds of things that would have taken me forever to find conclusions myself. So,
And it's, I think you touched upon, it's an intensive 6 months. And so do you feel like that it kind of condenses everything that you needed to then launch your business and embark on a career in agriculture in that 6 months?
I think that I would not have the confidence to be trying some of the things that I'm trying now without that foundation of knowledge and support from the farmer training program. And it was incredible, like vast ocean of knowledge that I'm still sorting through, to be honest. And I kept all my notes in my notebooks, and I still look back at those things, and and I still look at like these instructional like crop plans, and I still use all those materials, which is amazing. So it's been instrumental. It's been instrumental in me furthering developing the agricultural perspective of my business now.
Great. Thank you so much, Heather, for that perspective. Rachel, I'm going to toss back to you. So I think Heather really touched upon some really important things. The breadth of the knowledge in a 6-month time frame. And I know graduates and alumni from the program take on various different roles. They often will start their own, they'll maybe go work in a farm or maybe a wholesaling, products business or something along those lines. There's lots of different ways that I think that our graduates go. So maybe talk to a little bit of the information on this slide. The intention of the program is really covering so many different areas, and maybe touch upon some of those different areas that we're seeing on the slide.
An experience in vegetable production, and that's mostly because that's what the UVM's Catamount Farm has going on. It is a diversified farm experience, though, in that you do, through our partnership farms, you get a sense of various scales of farming. One of our partnership farms, you'll get exposure to raising animals, as well as small fruit production. So it is, it's a very practical experience. You're exposed most intimately to the systems on UVM's farm, and diving into, why we have systems set up the way they are. I would say, secondarily, you're getting exposed to the systems at our partnership farms. And once again, that becomes a pretty intimate experience. But not all of our students come in, intending to be production farmers. It's, you're gaining the how-tos, as well as through the classes, some of the whys behind the how-tos. But some people want that experience to start their own business, and then some people want that experience so that they have a leg to stand on when they go out to do, whether it's, advocacy on some level, whether that's policy work or whether that's working for a nonprofit that is supporting farmers in some way, or getting into ag education, or just starting some food-based venture that they want to be supporting small farmers in their food-based venture. With something like what Heather's doing, Heather wants to grow at least some of what they're using in their product. And so some of our alums are creating some value-added product that they use their practical experience to kind of inform them, what does that mean to source from well-raised food. And so let me refer to the slide to see if I hit on everything. So yeah, your practical experience. We do raise chickens on the farm. Once again, it's a lot about exposure. Often I'm telling students that this should be an experience that's just as much about figuring out what doesn't resonate for you as well as what does resonate for you. And then starting in 2017, I believe it was, we began incorporating social justice into our curriculum and how that ties into the food system. And the feedback that we've gotten for students is that we should absolutely continue with this. Students are eager to, just look at their place within this movement and how can we include everybody within this. This is not an elitist movement. This should be about everybody. And so it's one thing to know how to grow your own food, but then sometimes it's asking the uncomfortable questions of who has access to food, who has access to land. And as I said, how can we make this accessible to everybody who wants to be involved?
Great. Thank you for that overview. I really appreciate that. And we're going to learn more about a day in a life on the Catamount farm, a week in a life on the farm. I want to dive into a little bit more about the CSA as well that the farm supports and how the students are involved and just the process of that. We're going to pause for a video. As I mentioned, we're going to hear from some other alumni of the program. And in this footage, you're going to see some of the Catamount farm, which is one of the most beautiful places, I think, in Burlington. And so we're going to turn off our cameras real quickly and our microphones. We'll be right back. So stick around with us. We'll be right back to continue this discussion after this video.
Getting my hands dirty, actually like seeing where food is produced and learning so much.
It's really intended to give you the broadest possible view on what agriculture is and what sustainability means. That's been really valuable.
Food is an area that deserves all of our attention. I came in not knowing if I wanted to be a farmer, and I think that's okay too, because by the end of 6 months outdoors and working with soil and plants, it might change what you want to do.
It's like an incredible opportunity, incredible exposure to so many different viewpoints and models and people and backgrounds. I would recommend it 100%.
This was the first step.
We're going to have Rachel and Heather come back on camera with us. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of a teaser and a glimpse of the beautiful Catamount farm and the opportunity to be there on a daily basis. Heather, I'm going to ask you to turn back on your microphone for just a moment. Seeing that video, how do you feel about seeing the video in the farm and hearing from other alumni? Does it really bring back the experience?
Absolutely. It makes me want to go back and do the program again. And it resonates so fully. There's the exposure. Like one of the students said it so completely, like the exposure to so many different models. And myself, I never, like the idea of me starting a farm and owning my own farm and providing food for others, which my model is like a little bit different than that, but it never felt feasible until I saw other people doing it, until I interacted with the farmer training program space and saw folks that started a farm with $1,500 and on a small piece of leased property, and that it's possible. You know, it definitely created avenues of inspiration.
Why don't you share with us, I think we've teased enough about what you're doing. So why don't you share with us, almost 2 years post farmer training program, tell us what you're working on.
Well, about almost 10 months ago, my brother and my sister-in-law and I launched our brewery. We own a nano brewery business, and we also grow hops. So we've been growing hops for a little bit longer than that, and we use our hops in our beer. And so we're brewing on a small 3-barrel system. It's a very bootstrap scenario, I would say. We've worked very hard to build the brewery in our brewer's garage, And so that's our production space, and it's very professional. We can all our own beer, and we're just very, very small. And we just opened a tasting room in North Hero, about 8 miles north of our production space, so that now we actually do serve beer to the public in a very equitable and socially distanced way now, with current conditions. But so we're also using a lot of herbs, spices, peppers. We source from other local farmers things that we're not growing. We've done a series of basil beers, and which is, I think, very exciting, of like this like pairing of herb and this like on this like traditional recipe and the flavor profiles, and like having a greater understanding of the plant and mouthfeel, and how just like the soil that we need to maintain, and then like pests and disease, and like how do we get like this the best quality ingredient for our end product. And really, it's like great ingredients make great beer, and so that's certainly what we're doing. Yeah, it's very exciting. So 2 years post, we have an active, alive business that we are trying our best to keep up with.
Share with everyone the name of the brewery and website so that they can learn more.
Yeah, thank you. It's Kraemer and Kin. It's our last name. We're all Kraemers, and Kin. I guess I could show you my shirt, but and Kin is a kind of a respect and a homage to everyone else. That it takes so many people to build a dream, and all the encouragement and support and knowledge that we've been gathering through the years, it all like, climaxes to us being able to do something that we love. And we are kramerandkin.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll learn a little bit more from you in a few minutes. We do have a few questions, Rachel. Well, let's get to those questions in a moment. I want to dive into, because I know that people want to know, well, what am I going to be doing? And I know this may fluctuate a little bit, but walk us through some of the information that we're seeing on the slide here. What is it like for a week on the Catamount farm?
Sure. Yeah, I will say my disclaimer here will be this layout is historically what the program has looked like, and we're still discussing as a staff how that's going to change in light of all that's happening in the world this year around COVID. But I think that the outline may look a little different, but the content will be the same. So yeah, I mean, often students ask, how much time am I in the field and how much time am I in a classroom? And I'd say, on average, it's probably like 30 to 35% of your time is in what you imagine to be a traditional classroom setting. And then the remainder of the time you are outside. And that's a combination of both field instruction and then jumping in and actually making the farm run. So on Mondays, everybody gathers, and that's kind of a time to regroup. And so everybody goes off and assesses the farm as a whole, trying to figure out what are the priorities for a given week. And you work pretty closely with a specific staff member because, as you move through the program, you're focused on a different aspect of the farm work, whether if you're on a tractor rotation, you're going to be focusing on the tractor work when you're doing your field walk. If you're on one of the harvest rotations, you're going to be focused on what crops are ready to be harvested in that given week, and so on and so forth. And then we're jumping into, once we figure out priorities for the week, you're moving right into field work, and that continues through the day. Everybody is on site again on Tuesdays, and we're plugging away at what needs to happen on the farm. Tuesdays and historically Thursdays have both been harvest days, and so you're getting ready for our market. So we have, Nicole, you had mentioned our CSA prior. So we have a number of different marketing channels. I'll touch on those quickly right now. We've got 100-member CSA, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture. We have a weekly farmers market that we attend. It's in Burlington's Old North End. and that's on Tuesday afternoons. And we have a on-site farm stand that starts in late August, and that starts in conjunction with the beginning of apple season. And we also sell to the dining halls on UVM's campus. So students who are part of harvest rotations are harvesting and then packing CSA boxes and then delivering those boxes. Students who are on the farmer market rotation are doing the harvesting and then getting ready to head to farmer's market. And then other students, you might be, if you're on the planting rotation, you're reading the crop plan, you're seeing what needs to be direct seeded, seeing what needs to be transplanted. And then I would say, I guess, mixed in with all that, depending on what your focus is on the farm, you're working really closely with a specific staff member. And so we're not just throwing you into these tasks, we're making sure that not only are you comfortable doing something specific, but kind of looking at the overview of what are we looking at for today, but what are we looking at for the week, and how does this fit into both, that month of tasks and even in, within the whole season. So we're kind of constantly tying it into more of a, how this looks on a coordination management level. Wednesday, traditional classroom day. So we mentioned we bring in UVM professors, UVM extension agents, other ag professionals. So Wednesday is a traditional classroom day, and we're looping in all these amazing guest instructors that students are learning from. Thursdays, so we've worked with 3 different farms for a number of years. So more details are on our website, but we work with Intervale Community Farm. That's a larger scale vegetable operation located right in Burlington. We work with Bread and Butter Farm, which is a diversified farm operation, a really collaboratively modeled cluster of businesses that all work off this one farm. And they raise vegetables as well as a number of different animals. I think they've got beef cow, pigs, chickens, and turkeys right now. And then Adams Berry, small as the name suggests, that's small fruit production. And last year we were also working with another farm in Jeffersonville. That's the farm between John and Nancy Hayden. Unfortunately, well, not for them, but for us, they moved to the coast of Maine this fall. And so we'll be filling that in with another partnership farm. But yeah, just really incredible. These are all incredible farmers. And also we're just lucky that they're also phenomenal educators. And it feels really lucky that we can connect our students to these other farms in the area to get a glimpse of what it means to be farming successfully in this day and age. And then Friday is, it's another day that everybody comes back to the farm. We conduct assessments every other Friday. I can go into a little more detail what that is. And yeah, also trying to sort of tie up loose ends field work wise before everybody scatters for the weekend.
Great. That's quite an overview of the week. That's a lot going on. I think back to Heather's point, it's a lot. It's an intensive amount of learning that just when you break it down on a weekly basis. Thank you for that. I want to jump to a few questions. We'll leave this slide up for a few minutes. But Rachel, you may be able to see it in kind of the question box here. We have a question from Travis. And this is a great one. I bet a lot of students kind of ponder this. Do students in the agroecology major get the same style of hands-on education? Travis is debating between that degree program and the farmer training program. How do they compare and contrast? And I know that not necessarily the agroecology program isn't, necessarily your program, but how would you recommend that Travis try to compare those two programs? Yeah,
I mean, that's a good question. I think some of it stems around where an individual hopes to head after the program, and also just like what you want your schooling to be. So just to be clear, I mean, the farmer training program is a certificate program, so it's not a 4-credit program. The agroecology program is more embedded within UVM's academic program. So it is a 4-credit. You would be getting credit through any of the agroecology programs. And then that being said, I do think the agroecology programs that are offered, you will find that yeah, it's going to be more academia and classroom time than the outside practical experience. There is absolutely that within the agroecology programs, but it will feel more like your traditional college program. Yeah, it's a mix of both classroom and visits to farms, but the farmer training students are really they are, as opposed to maybe like part of your day being outside or on a farm, for farmer training students, it's you're more outside on the farm, and then the classroom is going to be peripheral to the practical.
Great, thank you for sharing that information. Let's also get to the question from Lyndon as well. How specific is the program to farming in Vermont? Does the program provide any support or resources like networking to help students interested in farming outside of Vermont? I think we've had students from all over the country as well, so maybe that's an indication that it isn't just about farming in Vermont. But how would you respond to that question, Rachel?
Yeah, no, we get that question a lot. And yeah, I'll just reiterate, we do, we always have a handful of Vermonters in the program every year, but our students are coming from all over the country. Yeah, I mean, it is, it's a program that's based in Vermont. So of course you're going to get comfortable with what farming feels like in New England, and you're going to get exposed to a lot of people within within agriculture within Vermont. But I think what makes it applicable, no matter where you head with it, is that part of this experience is like learning how to know what questions to ask, and learning how to know like when I have questions that arise, what resources are available and how can I find that? And it might look a little different depending on what state you're in. You're going to have a really good lead on, this is where I could find this in Vermont. And so I'm pretty sure I can find it within another state through another state's extension. And yeah, I mean, I think that, timing is going to change depending on what climate you're in, but you're going to be asking the same questions in terms of, how do you treat the land and therefore the food that you're growing in a healthy way. It doesn't matter where you do that. I feel like it's going to be the same questions that you're asking along the way in terms of technique and tools and choices.
Heather, maybe turn back on your microphone. I'd love your perspective on this, and maybe share a little bit about the students that were in your group as well. I bet there were people from outside of Vermont, and how do you feel that the curriculum and the program would translate to other states and other areas?
Thank you. So I guess my background, I came to the program from Alaska. So completely different growing zones. And I could have taken my knowledge back to Alaska, and absolutely applicable. And I think Rachel's totally right in saying that it's the same questions, and the networking that, like, opportunities that arise. If I took this back to Alaska, I would know so many more. Not necessarily I wouldn't have met those resources, but I would have known where to look, and I would have known where to start asking questions to get the help that I needed. And so as far as our class in 18, I think most students actually were from out of state, and I think maybe half to 3/4. and I think only a small handful of us actually stayed in the state, and everyone else went and scattered in other states across the nation. And I keep up with a few of them, and most folks are employing the knowledge that they've gained through FTP actively. And many are actually working on farms, or working on starting farms, or working on like agricultural components of other businesses. So definitely applicable.
Great. Thank you for that feedback. Super valuable to hear from you on that point as well. Rachel, I'm going to have you turn back on your microphone because I want to get through a few more questions. We do have some of the logistics up on the screen for everyone to see, just dates. Start thinking about May next year, and we'll get through some of the deadlines here in a moment too. And I think that Rachel's really been talking about a lot of the points that are on here, talking about food justice and marketing and the business management, the crop production as well. But let's also talk about applicants. We have a question from Sarah. She asks, what are you looking for in a candidate? Do you accept applications who are passionate about farming, but pretty new to it, and haven't spent a season on the farm? Talk to me about applicants and the process and what makes a good student in the farmer training program.
Yeah, so our applicants are definitely varied. Our youngest student last year turned 21 during the program, and our oldest student was in his 60s. And then we get everybody in between. So we get people at the beginning of their careers, we get people at the end of their careers who are looking into, what they want to do in their retirement to have meaningful work. And then we get a lot of people in the middle who are oftentimes making a career change. I would say the bulk of our students are in their probably mid to late 20s and early 30s. And I would say, I think it's helpful if you come into the program and have some kind of background in farming, but we have accepted people who are completely green to farming, and that's okay too. And so what I'm trying to suss out in an interview and, through someone's application is just a willingness to jump in and just engage completely. I'm often telling students that you get out of this what you put into it. And so if you are ready to fully engage, you're going to get a lot out of it. And I will say that, what's helpful about coming in with some farming experience is that you have some kind of context to put the information that you're learning from day one. You have context to think, a framework to think about it in. But for those students that don't have that, it can feel overwhelming to start with. And then as you move through the program, you'll see that the information you learn builds upon itself. And so it's not like you learn about a thing and then we never talk about it again. You learn about a thing and then we talk about another concept and we go into more depth and maybe we loop around to that first concept again. And so it's a constant reinforcement, and then through the program, it's just more and more depth. And so for those students who come in without a lot of background, it's going to feel like a lot at first, and then you're going to start putting all the pieces together and start making connections. And so it's a lot about enthusiasm and engagement.
Great. Hopefully that answered your question, Sarah. And I also saw we had a couple follow-up questions about age range of students. So thank you, Rachel, for touching on that. Hopefully that answers your question, Susanna, as well. We'll get over to, I see another question from Susanna and also from Mac. We'll get to those in just a moment. I just want to go back over to the top questions that students that typically ask, and prospective students. I know we've been talking a lot about what a typical week looks like. This one, I think, the next two are come up a lot. Can I work during the program? And is there housing available? Can you touch on those?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of our students work during the program. I highly recommend that people try, if they're financially able, to not work more than 20 hours a week. I highly recommend that. It's a lot. entering the program and, and you're there for 40 hours a week, what I've seen is that students can juggle full-time program and working part-time up to 20 hours. And then when they start to go over that, it's really taxing. And I've seen people do it. I've seen people work full-time as well as do the program, but you've just got to be extremely disciplined in terms of time management. Because I think it's, it's really demanding to try to do both. But yeah, many of our students work part-time, whether it's evenings and weekends. We end early on Fridays, so Friday afternoon is another time when people take on shifts. And then in terms of housing, Burlington is a college town, so it's a pretty transient place. The program doesn't provide housing. We do work with community members to post housing options for our students to try to help them in the process. So we now have community members who live really close to the farm and then just in surrounding towns who have been renting rooms to our students for years. They understand that the students are only there for 6 months. And so that's not a problem. And they don't sign like an official lease with those community members. They just work it out that they're renting a room for those 6 months. But some students decide to sign on a lease and just find their own housing. And I've never heard of a student having a problem finding something that works well for them. Price of housing, it kind of depends what you want, but on the low end, it's going to be $350 to $400 if you're renting a room in someone's house, and then that can go. The range is anywhere from like $400 to $800 a month is probably what you're looking at.
Right, and there are ample opportunities, as you said. It's a college town, and so there's lots of different opportunities to find places to live. I do want to get over, because we are getting a few questions about program logistics, and I just want to be mindful of the time as well. Looking at deadlines for registration, I'm seeing that we're having that as well. Registration is open, so it's really something that we would encourage. This program always fills, and especially because it didn't run this summer and fall. I would imagine that our inquiries into the program will be quite a few. And so I would highly recommend it, if this is something that you're interested in doing, to put in your application as soon as possible. And I believe you're getting applications now too, aren't you, Rachel?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not too surprising.
We're in the middle of it.
Yeah, we're at the end of September and we're getting applications for next May. So is there a cutoff date that you would put out there that you would like to have all applications turned in by?
I'll just say that for the past couple years, we've been filling the program by late January, early February. So I really would say for interested applicants, just to as soon as you can, really. Once your written application and letters of rec come in, we follow up with a phone interview. And then we try to let people know about acceptance within 2 weeks of that phone interview. And so we're accepting applicants now. We do, a third of our students from 2020 have already enrolled for 2021. So as Nicole said, I imagine that we may even fill a little earlier this year because of that.
Yeah, so seeing some of those dates on here, just also thinking about payments, when final payment is due in the beginning of April as well, just looking ahead and planning that. I want to come back to a few more questions, and Heather will kind of have you queued up too, because I would love to ask you maybe a few more questions too before we end in a moment. I always think this one's a great question too, Rachel, about sustainability of farm operations, electrification options for tractors, diversification. Do you touch on that at all in the program?
Yeah, and I see the question too about regenerative practices as well. And I would say that, within all of this, absolutely, we are trying to do this, in a way that is not only sustainable, but it's also, giving back to the land. And so that we want it to be better than the way we found it. And so we are getting into that. I would say our partnership farms are also using practices that I think fall into, the regenerative farming title. And I'll also say that I think it's a process rather than an endpoint. There's definitely tools that we use at UVM that I don't consider sustainable, but it's also a tool of the trade. And so these are questions and conversations that we're constantly having with students about why we're choosing these tools and what other options might be. And it's a process, and we've learned from students' ideas and students' experiences that they tried doing something one way on a farm that they worked on, and we'll sometimes give that a go based on their experiences. So yes, I do consider us sustainable. I feel like I've been slow to take on the term regenerative only because it is a trending term right now, and I do think our practices would fall into what's defined as regenerative. But I think that's something that you don't see immediately. Some of those practices are something you see over time. And then they are part of our weekly conversations of what all of that means and how can we head in that direction. Does that cover it? I think that covers it.
That covered. I think. Thank you for taking two questions in one, Rachel. Good job. So, back on a question from Susanna earlier about using organic practices, and I'm also curious, Heather, are you using organic practices? So, Rachel, give us information about what the farm is doing, and then Heather, what have you chosen to do?
Yeah. So, UVM's farm, Catamount Farm, is certified organic through NOFA, Northeast Organic Farming Association. Their certifying agency, Vermont Organic Farmers, and then all the farms we work with are also organic. And I think all of the farms we visit are organic. I can't think of any that are not.
Great. Heather, I'm going to turn back on your mic for you. What are you doing? Did you take some of those practices into your nano brewery as well?
Absolutely. Our hops are organic. And so our hop yard is about 1/4 of an acre. For context, it's about 140 plants. And typically we hand pick. We are without harvesting equipment, not because we don't want to use it, but because it's expensive, and we don't have the budget to purchase that at this time. But there are a lot of collaborative farms out there, and so we mechanically harvested for the first time this year with someone else's harvester. So yes, we are organic. We do use animal manures on both our home growing spaces, our larger gardens, herb gardens that we do use for brewing, and also for the hops.
Great, thank you for sharing that. Heather, I want you to stay on with us another minute and share, we've talked about a lot of different things today in terms of, the operations, the outcomes, just logistics. If you were to share with the prospective students that are joining us, why would someone want to take this program? If you're doing the elevator speech and someone asks you, why did you do the farmer training program at UVM? What do you say to them?
I would say that this program demystified a lot of unknowns, and I still have many unknowns because it's a process, right? And I'm still growing and learning and evolving in these concepts. But it really demystified agriculture as a business and as and like real life application of that and field work. Yes, I was a gardener before, but I in no way came in with a significant breadth of knowledge. I would definitely be a novice, and in some ways, I still feel I feel like I have so much more to learn because the content and the material is vast, and there is so many things touched on in the program. It's very comprehensive, and so I'm still evolving and learning and finding out more and doing more research about that knowledge that I gathered there. But the bones have been pivotal. The bones of that program and the instructorship is fantastic, and I ask a lot of questions because I felt the freedom to ask those questions, and I was the exploration and the conversation around concepts that I didn't understand or hadn't previously been exposed to, or challenging conversations that I hadn't had in my life yet, things like that, was accepted and open, and was a really, really positive experience. I at the meet and greet, one of the instructors, Jay, said that this program is going to change your life, and it's absolutely true. It's, regardless of where I was coming from or whatever, the things that I gathered and learned and the people that I met along the way have altered my agricultural trajectory, have altered my professional trajectory in a way that I'm so proud of and really happy to be enriched by. So, elevator, bing.
The floor. Yeah, you got to get off now. So thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for taking the time and sharing the experience that you're having too. Rachel, I'm gonna have you. Oh, good, your mic's still on. So one other question that we have as well, I think this is a great one. Thank you, Travis, for asking. Travis asked, is the GI Bill eligible to cover the cost of the farmer training program?
Yes.
Good. We like that answer. So thank you for asking that, Travis, as well. And I know Susanna was also just commenting, the program did not run. Yes, that is accurate. The program did not run this summer due to coronavirus pandemic. And so I know Rachel and her team are actively strategizing how the program is going to be responsive to the fact that it's very likely we'll still be in a pandemic next spring, or at least planning for that. So in future webinars and in follow-up information, we can learn more from Rachel as to what they're planning to do, because
Nicole, can I just touch on that? Yes, so we had to cancel the farmer training program, but the farmer training program staff, including myself, we did keep the farm in operation in 2020. And so we're now looping in UVM undergrads who are back on campus. And so that for us has been pretty incredible, just to have students back on the farm, but also to get a taste of, yes, we can do this successfully, and we feel really confident about looking forward to 2021.
Great, thank you for touching on that, and thank you, Susanna, for asking that question. So I think we're gonna end here. I don't know if I mentioned in the very beginning, I think Kelly put it in the chat box, this has been recorded. We will share this presentation out with everybody who has joined us today. And this won't be our last webinar. We'll get the group back together to talk more about UVM's farmer training program. But as Rachel mentioned, applications are actively coming in now. And just because I think the fact that the program didn't run this summer, maybe there's a few less slots, because some of those students that would have been here this summer probably it sounded like about a third are trying to get into the program next summer as well. So if you're interested, please consider getting that application in. If you have any additional questions, please email us and let us know if there's anything else we can answer. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you next May in UVM's farmer training program. Thank you, Heather, and thank you, Rachel. Have a great afternoon, everybody.